Hello everyone and welcome to Avantika Designeering series or ADS as we like to call it. Every week on Wednesday, we feature design and technology leaders who share their professional journey, their thoughts on their domain of work, and designeering where the world of design and engineering meet. Make sure you follow us on social media Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. And with that, let's continue with your show.
User experience design has always been a rapidly evolving field. Keeping up with the new trends and changes in the industry while also collaborating and managing a team of designers is a challenging task. Being able to deliver powerful, impactful, and accessible experiences in a bind like this needs a multidisciplinary approach, managing large teams efficiently, and an empathetic connection with the users. So, how can designers deliver the best possible experiences while collaborating with other designers? To know more about this theme, in this episode, we interact with Mayur Chaudhary, Vice President User Experience and Design at Myntra and founder Rethinking UX Community. With over 2 decades of experiences building products and managing big teams, he holds expertise in user interface design, user experience design, interaction design, information architecture, and much more. And that's why, on our journey of discovering designeering, we talked to him about the DNA of design. Hello, Mayur, and welcome to Avantika Designeering podcast series. It's an honor and pleasure to host you on our show today.
Hey Rohit, thanks for inviting me to this podcast, and it's an honor to be here.
Super. So let's start with some icebreaker, Mayur. Design is a single combination of several disciplines, I believe. The output of design isn't statement of truth, nor is it a philosophical exercise in communication through aesthetics. However, the design should be more appropriate for the target group to enhance their user experience. The question that I have for you as an icebreaker is how can we quantify the effectiveness of our design outcomes so that we can be confident that we are on the right track?
A great question, Rohit. And I believe with the right approach and good problem-solving mindset, we should be able to quantify our effectiveness of the design. My understanding has always been that if I have 100 hours, I'll try to spend 70 hours in finding the right problem, and the other 30 hours in the execution. Stakeholders collaboration, diversity of thought are essential characteristics for empathy. And user research is aligned with that 70% of the time. The other 30% is more to do with execution of your design on paper, your thinking on paper. And for that, you can choose any tools that you want, be it Figma, XD, Sketch, or any other tool. Tools are just a medium. In my opinion, the stepping stone starts with the understanding of the entire product ecosystem and benchmarking the current metrics, be it engagement, be it happiness score, be it adoption rates or conversion metrics, and so on. There are so many of them that a designer can benchmark it. Once we have benchmarked those attributes, that constitutes the product success, which is aligned to the business goal. Designers can then craft their approach and then reach to that number which we can call as a success. Things becomes easy when we have a wraparound understanding of the entire product uh, and have a good fair understanding of the user goal and the business goals. Additionally, the essence of our strategy is also in choosing what to do and what not to do.
Well said, Mayur, and completely agree to bridging the gap between the user goals and the business goal, and I think there is always a tussle between coming out to a common path while doing that, and those organizations that are able to do this go out there to be successful. So really well said. And moving from that icebreaker, Mayur, to now your personal journey. So, having an experience of more than 2 decades in building lovable products and have managed teams as big as 160 plus user experience professional. Wow, that's a huge number. With exposure to products and organization culture from fintech, enterprise, business, startup, B2B, B2C, B2B2C, consulting, services, and so much more. Can you take us through your professional journey?
Yeah, sure, Rohit. And this is going back to memory lane. Ah, I'm a physics honors, and as it said, wisdom isn't a product of schooling, but of a lifelong attempt to acquire one. I ventured into the design profession by virtue of passion and interest. One fine day, I just downloaded Photoshop, and that's where everything started. I consider myself fortunate to be part of almost all the vertical that I can think of, be it enterprise, startup, consulting, services, B2B, B2, B2C. My interest in design and user experience has brought me where I am right now. I have been part of so many multiple organizations with diverse and unique cultures. Accenture, Cisco, SAP, NCR Corporation, Canvera, Magicbricks, and now I am in Mintra. They are institutions to me. They have shaped me to be what I am today. Every organization has taught me something. One of the like organization they taught that organization was epitome of process, so I learned process from there. And the other made me learn how to build a sustainable design culture, taught me the success recipe that is optimizing user and business goal. More than 2 decades, I have been creating and nurturing large teams and building products at scale that touch billions. I was also fortunate to work for a company which is a 130-year-old company. And to just to put you the fact why I joined that company, Rohit, I joined that company because I thought building product is challenging, but it can be done. But changing design culture in a hundred and or building a design culture in a 130-year-old engineering-led company, that can be a next level of challenge. So I thought, okay, let's take it up, and I was there for 2.5 years. So I'm enjoying where I am now and couldn't have asked for more. My current role at Mintra, the journey constitutes continues to build a digital product design culture centered around compassion, competence, and collaboration. I would say the journey has been challenging, fun, and rewarding, and I'm still learning. And I encourage everyone who is part of this profession, uh, they should be mentee throughout their life, and that's where the entire fun is. So this is what was my journey for last 23 years, Rohit.
Wow, interesting, Mayur. This quite an incredible journey, and the kind of organizations that you work with. One of the things, Mayur, that I wanted to ask you is, having gone through this journey, which has been so dynamic, not only in terms of the kind of organizations, but even in kind of in terms of the experience that you've taken. In fact, while you were working with all of these companies, the entire world of user experience design itself has evolved. So, how were you able to change the gears and actually build up your skill sets, while working with these organizations as well?
A great question, Rohit. And I have been part of the entire UX design evolution. I remember I started in around 1999. It was all graphic design, website design, and somewhere in 2002 or 3, UI design came into picture in India. I would say I was smart enough to upgrade myself to learn and tweak around what I am doing and how I am doing my work. And then if eventually I evolved graphic design, website design, UX design, AI, VR, and now whatnot. There is a lot in the future. I would say as long as you have a tight hold on what is happening around, what's new and upcoming, I think everyone should be ready to shape his or her professional career. Uh, if you ask me, I don't know what UX design will be there after 5 years. Uh, Leave 5 years, even after 3 years, I don't know what or how this will shape. Because uh, sometimes, until some time back, product management and UX design, there was a thick line between them. Now that thick line is has become thin, and every UX designer should have some attribute of product manager. I personally, when I hire someone, or if I connect with any of my team members, I tell them a UX designer needs to be around 70% UX designer, around 20% they need to be a product manager, and rest of them is content person, because these three combined together makes a good UX designer, and encourages in-depth knowledge of the strategy, the design thinking, the lateral thinking, and even the content, which is the key part of it, because it handholds every screen. It handholds the consumer, and it takes the consumer through every screen. So I think these three are key skills, and that's what I have learned, like, eventually, because there is no hard and fast one rule sets for all. Every organization, there is a different culture. So I would say continuous learning is key to everyone, and that's where the success recipe lies.
Hey, did you know Mintra has partnered with the Ministry of Textiles to support weavers and promote the handloom industries, and has pledged to put craftsmen and their goods online, giving them access to new consumers and possibilities. Wow, interesting. That's incredible. But apart from all of these beautiful companies that you've been talking about, and the kind of work that you've done, there's something else that you've been doing, which is building a community of designers and actually adding value to them, through this entire community. And I want to know more about that. So, in fact, when you talk about designers, they often enjoy nothing more than expressing their passion with others. Volunteering and giving back to the community can be a tremendously satisfying and life changing activity in itself. You've done this by establishing and growing a global network at Rethinking UX, which endeavors to put persuasive experience makers, leaders, and developers together to share perspectives, and most important, to learn and contribute back to the community. What I wish to know from you is, can you tell us more about this community? What drives you to do this? And most importantly, where do you find time to do all of this?
Rohit. So, rethinking UX, yes. I firmly believe that our behavior is a function of our decision and not condition. And I always intended to contribute back my share of learning to the community. Uh, when we thought about starting rethinking UX right before the COVID started, in 2020 January, I believe. And we had a plan to have a in-person events and gather around a few folks who contribute to human experience. And it all started on 29th Feb 2020, and we chose this day quite wisely, because it's a day to remember. It was a leap year. We nurtured our vision of bringing every professional who can contribute to human experience. I'm proud to say that, like Rohit, that this is the only community dedicated to professionals from design, product, content, development, marketing, and so on. Because UX is not only about UX design. There are other stakeholders in the company who contribute. And I thought, let's build a company where everyone can come together, talk about it, and contribute back. And that's where we all learn together. Building a community has never been easy. If you ask me, would you like to build one again, and I'll think 100 times. And this wasn't possible without continued support from like-minded folks from the industry. I remember when I started 1.5 years back, there was a WhatsApp group, and we were only four of us. Uh, my team and I have contributed over weekends to build this clutter-free, engaging experiential learning community. My key takeaways of building rethinking UX and to help others who wants to venture into community building are will be few of them. Like top five, if I have to say, be consistent, because no matter how good you are, no matter which designation you hold, it all boils down to how consistent you are in whatever you do. After the COVID started, I have seen on LinkedIn, and I have learned a lot from the leaders in the industry when I talk to them, that people do start something, but they are not able to sustain it for long. I think the great thing for which happened for us, the team that I had, and we are four core members, and we have another four extended core team. We are a team of eight. We were quite consistent. We have seen the ups and downs because COVID first wave came, second wave came. Everyone was scared. They had their own personal problems, and we had to judge the sentiments, when to do the event, when not to do the event, because in that mood nobody wants to be part of the events when there is so much happening around. So one, I would encourage everyone to be consistent if they are planning to build any community. Second, resilience. If you stay positive in a negative situation, there are high chances you will succeed. We thought we will have some spare time over the weekend, and we created rethinking UX community. If I can go back and think what I would have done on those weekends, if there was no rethinking UX, I can imagine I would have read few books, or I would have seen all Netflix series. But I'm glad that we started rethinking. At least this was something positive, and we have learned a lot. If I knew around 10,000 professionals across the globe 1.5 years back, now I know lakhs of them, millions of them. So I would say, like, resilience is the second one. Third is that time management is the key. Uh, Me and all my team members, we don't work during the weekdays because all of us are professionals. We are engaged with our professional engagement, but we have never taken any leave for last 1.5 years. Our weekends are working weekends where we connect with the professionals. We connect everyone across the globe. We connect within ourselves, what initiative and what not. You know it better than anyone else, because I see you are a busy man. You conduct podcast events and other things. So I would say time management is the key. We only have 24 hours, and if we can manage the time well, I think that's where the key lies. The fourth one, I would say, lend a helping hand. When I was coming up as a professional, and when I wanted a helping hand, I got helping hand a few times, but many a times I had to face the problem. Now I can see there are so many professionals who are upcoming professionals in design, product management. They want a helping hand. They want to learn from the success. They want to learn from the failures, from the leaders, and I think they need someone to guide them. There is a knowledge from the book, but there is a wisdom from the experience, and that's what these communities can give it back. Last but not the least, lead it from the front. Others will only follow if you show them the way. There has not been any day where all of us, all the team members, we thought, okay, someone else will do it. We have always led it from the front. At some point of time, we had 13 different initiatives going on. We had two mentorship programs uh, back to back, where the first one we had 150 designers and product managers. The second one we had 55 or 60, and we had our own share of learnings. In just 1 year, we have grown exponentially with more than 120 virtual events, which was attended by more than 15,000 participants, with almost 20,000 followers on LinkedIn now. And we have, I believe, 1,600 plus Slack members across the globe. Community is growing daily, and I would encourage all your listeners to join this wonderful community and harness the potential of community learning. This has been a phenomenal journey, and this has helped everyone, and I'm still helping. After this podcast, I have a connect with one of the researcher where I'll be doing, I'll helping him do like UT. So all those are quite interesting, and I would encourage everyone to build community, be part of one community for sure.
Wow, amazing. Absolutely. We published about rethinking UX, in our last magazine at Weave. And, a couple of activities that rethinking UX does is really incredible, something that all of us should be part of. I'm a member of it, and there's a lot of learning, as Mayur said, and it's a huge shout out to all the team members at Rethinking UX for doing this amazing job, and be a part of this thriving community. And while we've been talking, Mayur, about your journey, there is one important piece of information. While we spoke about how you've led these large team, we want to do certain kind of learning from that entire experience of yours. You've been at the forefront of user experience and design to democratize and make apparel and beauty brands available to all. Managing design teams is difficult. Leading them to solve a design challenge and ensure that their priorities are aligned towards the same target is a huge problem to address. The question that I have for you there is, how do you maintain and develop an in-house design team, onboard new members, and refine the user experience process?
So, Rohit, UX design skill and UX designer as a profession has come a long way. That's what my belief is, and it's evolving daily. Hiring a UX designer has to be intelligent, scientific, and process oriented. Believe me, I get into discussions with many of the design hiring managers and leaders. How do you hire? And is there a process? And in every organization, I have been changing the process because the situation have changed. 1.5 years back, the process was something else. Now, because of the COVID, it has changed. Every interviewee goes through mini assessment phase for core skills, team and company vision alignment, and priority is given to the future potential. At least what I want in any of the designer whom I hire is, first of all, this the core skill has to be there, but I also look at the future potential. If nurtured well, how well they will do in future, because that's what the potential is. The emphasis is always on the potential, and if nurtured well, can they deliver to the expectation? My leadership style is to empower the team members to make decisions and come back with the solutions, keeping users and business goal intact. And apart from quality delivery, building great design culture has been my forte and my interest. I'm also like responsible for creating leaders for tomorrow. There's a multiple initiative intervention that to achieve this goal, and I keep on doing it in any of the organizations. I think in 2019, in one of the organization, we had conducted around 28 workshop, educated around 1,500 plus developers about design thinking, what is digital product design, how we can collaborate, and that is the onus on us, because we are not only hired to build a product, usable product, but also to build a design culture. Good usable product is every human right, that's what I believe. And to deliver a lovable digital product, one needs to understand the genuine problem, and that's where I said the emphasis should be 70% on the finding the right problem. A good understanding of 5WH, that is why, who, what, where, when, and how, is a must for every designer. And that also makes you helps you have a better understanding of what you are about to build. You cannot be a great designer without knowing the problem at hand, your target audience, organizational goals, future vision, and so on. There are so many metrics to chase. We need to have process to help designers do justice to their task, and I'm glad that we have one at Mintra UX design team, and we are evolving as the time goes by. So I think in the current state, two input from me. One, the hiring manager has to be at least 10x smarter than whom he or she is hiring. Second, when you hire someone, it's the match of both this world. The other party is also in some way interviewing you, because the designer or the product manager, they are finding a right match, because they will look at you as a leader, they will look at you as a team member, they will look at you as an organization. So in some way, every hiring manager also portrays or defines what the culture is in an organization, and where and what to expect from it. So I think it's a very serious process that the both parties goes through, And I think we should do justice to that hiring process too.
Well said, Mayur. And for all our listeners, Mayur just shared the very interesting aspect of how do you actually go out there and build large teams and manage them. Very, very beautiful and very rich experience to do that. I think it is one of the most difficult tasks in an organization to lead people, to work with them, to get the work done from them. And yeah, it's a skill that that one needs to master over a period of time. And especially within that domain, if you put designers, which are creative folks with very different thought process, the challenge goes out there and multiplies as well. So while Mayur, we've been discussing your journey and your style of management and the community that you build, let's change the gear to talking about the world of design. In fact, there's a very famous saying, Mayur, that the best design is no design. An easy to use, well designed product brings its features and functionality to the forefront only as the user needs them. And they work precisely in the way the user needs them to work at any given moment. What I wish to know from you is how can designers build products without adding complexity and mimics the workflow of the users?
A great question, Rohit, and I think this should be in the mindset of every designer before they venture into any product design. Uh, a UX designer's responsibility is to make an impact beyond products. And I believe that it's time designers need to act more than talk and listen more than act. Knowing how to articulate the thinking behind our decisions is as important as knowing what to design. And I think getting to know the consumer, getting to know the user, that's the key. The research and empathy based approach challenges our perceived ideas, and in many ways also sets aside our sense of what we think is true to learn what is actually true. uh, Designers should, I tell all my team members, think about what is the solution. The first solution is not always the best solution, and if you have multiple options, go and revalidate with the and do the research. We talk about empathy loosely, but most commonly as a single attribute. But there is a need to consider distinct kind of empathy, be it cognitive, emotional, compassionate, empathetic empathy. Moreover, deep empathy for people makes our observations powerful source of inspiration. I would say the research-led design approach is the only way ahead, especially now during COVID, which in turn will lead to reduced complexity and will mimic the user's flow and the mental model. I'm part of India's one of the finest e-commerce platform, and as a design uh, team, our vision is to create products which is research-led, data-informed, usable product. So I would say research-led approach should be the key to remove complexity from the product and make something which your users will love and admire.
Hey, did you know Mintra offers more than 2 lakh products of over 1,000 Indian and international brands, including the top brands with a distribution area of around 9,000 pin codes in India. Wow, well said, Mayur again. In fact, while talking about building products that go out and delight your customer, today accessibility is widely acknowledged as a concept that applies to society as a whole. Even though some of us may not have an identified physical or neurological say impairment, it will inevitably affect all of us at some point in our lives. What I wish to know from you next, Mayur, is how can designers make products that consider the experiences of specially abled users to make our product accessible first and not merely as an add on? And I want to say this because while mentioning about your journey, you mentioned about how sustainability design has actually impacted your journey, and how do you actually create a user experience there?
A great topic, Rohit. This topic is very close to my heart. I have led multiple global products in my previous company to comply with strict accessibility guidelines. I was part of a company to build ATM softwares for across the globe. And when we create something like ATM software, the accessibility compliant has to be at the core because we sell it to uh, every different companies, government, and henceforth, and like that's used by everyone, even these specially enabled folks. My understanding is accessibility should be in the DNA of every designer's thinking and digital product approach. Sorry to say, but most of the app that I see nowadays, they are more into creating the delight, and while doing so, they miss the core about accessibility. The most low hanging fruits are the font size, the color contrast, and henceforth others are still like far fetched, but at least basics if they can do, even then we would be able to help uh, solve the problems for the especially enabled folks. Ownership is on us to reinforce the importance of web and digital accessibility, and to show its importance to designers and stakeholders. And like there is a big gap I see everywhere, and we as a designer and even as a product community, we need to improve on that. There are multiple reasons why we should invest our time and effort in accessibility. One of them is a good usable product is every human's right, and that also includes especially enabled folks. Uh, to bring a perspective, in US, the disposable income of working age people with disabilities is estimated to be 490 billion per year, and these are the recent numbers from 2020. And it's essential to involve especially and I think because there is a business on the table, and because there are consumers who use our app, who are who are in some way disabled. We need, like, it is essential to also involve them in our user research. uh, Generally what happens is we don't put as a demography column that okay, some, let's add a few of the especially enabled folks. I have like never seen them, because we just think that okay, everyone is fine, everyone can see the screen, and they can approach our product in the same way. But I think time has come, we need to start doing like research and connect with the specially enabled folks. Around 2.6 crore human in India fall under the disability category, which is 2.21 of the total population. And I'm sure that these are not these this doesn't cover all 21 types of disabilities for sure. So design should comply with the web content accessibility guideline, and a responsible designer should be aware of WCAG 2.1. 2.2, I think that is going to be released soon in October or sometime during like 1 or 2 months down the lane. But to cut short, if you want to start, the time is now. Go and read WCAG guidelines. It is easily available across the web, and start somewhere, because product design is not about, it's about usable product, good looking product, but it's also about making it accessible to all specially enabled folks. So that should be part of our DNA as a designer. Any pixel that we put on any tool, we need to make sure that this should be accessed by specially enabled folks.
Amazingly interesting. I mean, there's so much to learn from this conversation, and so much take home for our listeners. But in the interest of time, here are my quick last two questions for you. The next one that I want to know from you is, B2B designs have a large market audience, which brings countless opportunities that can have huge impacts on our users. But this multi target situation is challenging to overcome and likely to bring confusion to the design process. What I wish to know from you, Mayur, is what are some of the challenges designers can face while solving B2B problems, and what framework can we use to overcome them, especially where you've come with so much B2B experience that can help our listeners understand this.
So, how to design for B2B and B2C? What are the differences? This is the most asked question on the Rethinking UX Slack community. Technical technological improvements and innovation all around have forced the industry to evolve, and so the consumers. But there are different types of consumer. There is a B2B and B2C, and like that's what we are talking about. Creating a great experience is a liaison between technology, business, and design. A good UX designer should be well versed with all three, which results in a usable and workable solution. I would say at core, B2B and B2C have similarities. However, B2B audience often has needs that they are very different from the B2B consumers. One of them can be unlike B2C, B2B purchases are rarely impulsive. You don't just go and buy the things. There are decision making that is involved, there is approval process that is involved. So the buying cycles are generally lengthier, planned, and go through a lot of discussion when it comes to B2B. And that's a major difference, Rohit. Hence, there is a need to provide tools that enables our B2B customers to share product with their peers and talk about their feedback decisions and the contents of their shopping cart, which other members can also review. Like when you buy something in your office from some B2B application, there is a approval flow, and that's where that mechanism has to be there, and that's a like different kind of flow altogether. And the and there has to be a scope for the review, discussion, and the approval in the entire B2B product flow. Also, design and content should speak to both choosers and the users. There are two users when we are talking about in the case of B2B. Users are often concerned with specifications and details, uh, and the choosers user base is typically concerned with the cost, reliability, and experience, and henceforth. But at core, I would say, Rohit, when designing for B2B audience, emphasis should be given on a complex pricing, varied customer segment, which how many permissions are there, how to assign the permissions, and a robust customer support system throughout the product journey, because that is the core. At any point of time, if our users they want any helping hand, because B2B product flows are complex ones, there has to be a way to reach out to them. So I would say around 60% UX is the same, like at both the places, but it's the consumer they which differs. So we need to think, we need to find the right problem for them to solve and give them a flawless experience which helps them to process the to finish their goal and then in a minimum time. So one of the key thing is time, because in most of the B2B product, time is the essence. When we have worked on multiple B2B application, and like one of the benchmark that we do is the time. How much time a user takes can take to finish this task, and if we can like reduce even 10 seconds of his or her time to complete that task, I think we have a success at the corner. So I think there is for sure a different approach of designing for B2B and B2C, and a designer needs to keep that in mind about the different kind of user base that a B2B has.
Wow, well said. And that brings me, Mayur, to my last question. At Avantika University, we coined the term designeering, a unique mix of design and engineering. Do you believe that each of these ideas can be incorporated together to help emerging designers achieve something exceptional?
Definitely, Rohit. In my decades of experience, the best ideas have come from the pollination of different skills and mindset. And this also exposes the designers to possible restrictions and limitless possibilities, because when you talk to developers, when you talk to a person who has a different varied skills, I think the possibilities goes manifold. UX design is all about art and science. It's up to us how to balance these two for a maximum benefit, right? uh, these cross culture mix of knowledge and mindset will definitely help designers. And that's where for last 4 or 5 years I have been facilitating design thinking sessions, and I have seen developers are engaged, the great ideas come from them, and it has helped a lot in any organization I have been there in the past. Though it is the mindset that separates the best from the rest, but I would say definitely the cross pollination of two different skills, two different verticals, I think that will help. Wish I could have coined a different term or a name for product and design, because in most of the companies what happens, you join as a UX designer but you are part of a product management, right? So like you have done designeering, wish I could have done product sign or something. And I think it's the time that we should do it, because we work so closely, we work in a collaboration with product and design. I think product sign or something could be a good option, like the one that you have coined, Rohit.
Wow, thank you so much for that validation, Mayur. It was amazing talking to you, and I'm sure there's a lot of learning for our listeners, in this conversation. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Rohit. It was a pleasure.
Hey, hello Arnab. Welcome to our last episode with you, where we are discussing your startup journey and the value that it adds to your customers. So today, let's do this as a change. Let's do this as quick round of few questions and get your thoughts on that. So here is my first one for you. What tools and techniques do you necessarily use to ensure a quality output?
Thank you so much for having us today again. And when we actually, talk about tools and techniques, they are never the same. When we design the experiences. However, we at Embed divide the entire journey, or prefer, dividing the entire journey into smaller stages where we follow a three-step process, which is discover, design, and execute. Now, this sets the base for any UX research as such, and in order to ensure all these stakeholders are involved, we always prefer starting with a experience canvas workshop where it helps bring all the stakeholders together and answer a few set of questions. Now the term was again popularized by Atlassian, and since we have all these stakeholders participating and answering a set of questions, it helps them to get on a single page when it comes to the design output. And it also gives us the clarity on what is supposed to be done. And it also helps us understand various perspective, because there are people involved from various teams in the way that how they see it, right? It answers the questions revolving around their competitors, who are their target audiences for which they are building the product, what is that they are trying to sell, what is their unique selling point, which is the USP, right? What are the minimum features they are targeting for their MVP, and also if they have any proposed solutions for the same, right? And this not only helps us get the clarity, but also help people from various other teams, like I mentioned, understand various design processes, because as for most of them, the final output is just the visual design. This also ensures then conveying that what all efforts goes behind making that visual design, right? So that's again one thing this caters to. Then we define the market needs, the personas, and after this discover phase, we move to design, where we define the customers or the user journey, the tasks they would be doing, not just in case of a happy flow where everything seems perfect, but also we consider multiple use cases where even if user selects any particular option apart from the happy flow or something which has been defined in terms of completing an action, they have a solution for that as well, right in the product, so that it adds up to the better user experience. We also define the information architecture, how they'll be going with with the particular set of information. How can we do the card sorting, and actually sync and merge the information tabs, so that people don't have to spend a lot of time in searching for the information they are looking for. After which we actually move to the final stage, which is the execution, where we design the wireframes, the navigations, how they will be interacting, what they will be interacting. We plan the micro interactions, and then finally we move to the final prototype. Uh, this is the entire process we follow, and this ensures that we are able to align the needs of the business and the users, and ultimately providing a better user experience and a quality product.
Why don't you define customer experience for our listeners?
In simple words, it is a way in which you interact with any product, service, or system in order to complete a task.
Wow, that's interesting. Here is my next one. User experience is expensive, but
Impactful.
indeed, well said. Here is my next one for you. A must read for gaining knowledge in user experience design is.
The Design of Everyday Things by Don Norman.
Wow, I'm sure this must be an exciting one. And moving on to my next question. As a client, what can I expect as the first question from you for a minimum viable product?
What's your idea?
Wow, that's interesting. Here is my next one. I will be glad to do business with Embed Design because.
Well, simply because we embed customer experiences for your brand.
Wow, that's well said. Thank you so much, Arnav, for doing this with us.
Hey there, we hope you enjoyed our show. Do write to us on ads@avantika.edu.in. We look forward to your opinions, feedbacks, and suggestions of speakers you would like us to host on this show. Do tune in our channel next week on Wednesday for a new story on Hubhopper or wherever you get your podcast from. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter.